Hi there guys, and welcome back to a sexy late night edition of the top 100 UK game shows of all time. Yes, I've been left at home on my own in the evening, which means rather than do important stuff like relax and, do the dishes, I thought I'd come up here and talk to you about game shows yet again. But today is getting super serious as we are talking about game shows that are in my top 20. Now, all of these shows, in my opinion, are nearing perfection, and at one time or another I would have thought all of these were in my top 10 until I made this list and realised they are not. But all these game shows are absolute greats in my mind, and I can't wait to talk about them. Let's get on with it. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Here is my number 20 to my number 11. Last episode I talked about Going for Gold and how it has one of the best game show theme tunes of all time, but this show has an amazing one too. Cue Maestro, here is number 20.
And now, here's the host of Blockbusters, Bob Holness.
So my number 20 is Blockbusters, which is obviously an absolute undisputed classic of the genre. I don't need to tell you how this game show works. Two heads are better than one, try and light up the hexes, gold run after gold run after gold run. We all know how this game show works, so let's talk about how great it is. So I think when this show first came out, it really popped on the screen. I really think that grid massively helps it. It's so interesting that there's a US version of the show that I believe was piloted before, and they use a totally different colour scheme for their hex grid, and it really doesn't work for me at all. It's sort of like greens and reds and blues, if I remember correctly, and our grid with the yellow hexagons and the blue and the white, it just so pops, and I really think that sort of helped launch this game show into being such a phenomenon. Bob Holness is a fantastic host. He feels like this mentor figure to the sort of university students who are coming on. I think those university students really add something to the show. Like, this show has real relevance, real meaning, like it's doing something worthy. I think that's a really important factor in the show, and it's interesting that in some revivals they didn't use that factor, and it definitely felt like a diminished show as a result. I really like the idea of using the letters for questions. I think that just leaves basically an unlimited number of questions, but that's now undoubtedly a Blockbusters question. If you're saying what F, what P, what A, so on and so forth. The hex grid is really the star of this show, though. It's an unbelievable invention. It's just absolutely mind-boggling how they had to use all the projectors to sort of light up different hexes. I mean, it really does look like it's been made on a computer, that original version, but to think it's all just like slides and lights is just so amazing. My very interesting Blockbusters fact is that it's impossible to draw on a Blockbusters board. If you fill in all 20 hexagons, someone has to win. I feel like I want to try that out, but I won't do that now. This game show sits at my number 20 because maybe it's a bit too familiar for me. I've seen it played out quite a lot now, and so maybe it's not as exciting to me as other game shows, but it's undoubtedly one of the game shows that got me into what I'm doing now. If I hadn't seen this game show as a kid, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing. So therefore I owe it a huge debt, and I love it so much. I have to say I quite like the revival as well with Dara Bruin. I think they've done a really good job. It looks really cool. I like the set. I like all the sort of gobos lighting up in the background when they sort of win, and I quite like the comedy of it. I think it's the best revival of Blockbusters I've seen. So yeah, so much I like about this show, so much I owe to the show, and that's why it has to be this high on my list at my number 20, Blockbusters. Let's do a hand jive. Do something like this, and then they do that, and maybe that, and then they do this. I think they do that. Do. Blockbusters. Da 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 da. Boo boo boo. Boo. Blockbusters, 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 Blockbusters. It was something like that. Something like that. As we climb my game show Everest, it may be surprising to hear that a Channel 5 show has snuck in at my number 19. But it's a game show I just love so much, and I want to tell you how much I love it right now. Here it is, my number 19.
Hello and welcome to Sell Me the Answer. Every one of these 60 money-hungry traders is just itching to get their hands on every penny of the players' money. It's the right answer! Yes! Come on! If you're in doubt, you might have to shout. Sell me the answer! Sell me the answer!
So my number 19 is Sell Me the Answer. This is a small show compared to a lot of the shows that are going to be this high up my list. But I just love the format of the show so much. It's so clever. I just found myself watching it over and over again. This is a show some of you may not be familiar with, so I will go through how it works. Basically, there is a main contestant, and they come on and they play the game. And basically, to win the money, they have to get through 10 questions worth increasing amounts of money. It starts very small and get bigger and bigger and bigger. But each round they're asked a increasingly hard question. There's no multiple choice in this game, so you have to know it or not know it. And basically, if they don't know the answer, then they can attempt to buy the answer from 50 brokers who sit in the audience, and they're all trying to bid to win your money. Because if they can bid to win your money, then they get the chance to negotiate with you for a fee. They get that fee whether they know the answer or not, which is kind of the cleverness of this format, and also its cruelty. And if they haven't got the answer to give you, then you're left guessing, and that might eliminate you from the show, or they might give you the wrong answer, which is a good moment, or they might give you the right answer, which is also a good moment. Why do I like this format? It's just so tight. It's just so perfect. It's always interesting because you've got different characters coming in, like they've deliberately cast the brokers to be like very big characters in the audience. They're quite annoying to watch, and watching them get away with blue murder, with just basically stealing hundreds of pounds off the contestants, is quite fun but also annoying, which is quite addictive, which makes you carry on watching because you want to see if that person gets to be a dick again. Love the questions. The questions are very well written. They're just pitched right. They're sort of easy, but like if you don't know them, it's like, oh, it's so frustrating that you have to go to the brokers. There's not much more to say really. It's a small show, but it's a small, perfectly formed show. I like everything about it. I like the sound effects and stuff. I just think it does a really good job ticking along. I could watch this for hours, to be perfectly honest, and that's why it has to be here at my number 19, Sell Me the Answer. Now, way back when in episode 1, I said that I was not going to have any reality shows on my list. So as a result, this show may have fallen off people's radar in the same way Big Fat Quiz of the Year fell off people's radar because I said that there was going to be no panel shows. But in my opinion, although this show is a reality show, it's so much a game show, I can't not put it on the list because it's brilliant. Here is my number 18. So my number 18 is Survivor, I was totally infatuated with this show when it came out. Obviously, when this show came out, it was like Popstars, Big Brother and Survivor, and unfortunately Survivor came out last and it suffered for that, but for me it's the best of those three shows, and I will tell you why. So basically, how does this work? I'm sure you're familiar with this, but 16 people go to an island, they face a series of tasks, they can like gain immunity, they have to survive like on sort of in a harsh desert, on a harsh desert island, and at the end of it, one of them, after a series of vote-offs, takes home £1 million. So the UK version was very raw, and obviously the US version, which has been running for a bazillion series, has just like nailed the format. But there's something very interesting about going back and looking at the UK original version and seeing just how many shows owe this show a debt. Things like The Island and Shipwrecked and even Big Brother itself. There's just so many like really innovative moments that happened in this series. And when I first watched this, I'd never seen anything like this on TV. I just found it so fascinating. There was this reality game show. Like at this point, obviously Big Brother existed, but Big Brother was very much a social experiment. It hadn't really become a game show yet. I don't know how much of a game show it really ever was, but Survivor was definitely a game show first and foremost. I really like the chat between the contestants, just like round camp. I think the British version does that a lot better than the American version. I think in the American version we don't really care. We just want to talk about who's going to backstab who and like get to the task. But I think the British conversation is just a lot more interesting, so I think it's all right to allow that to sort of be a bigger part of the format in the UK. I don't think it suffers for that particularly. Some of the tasks were very iconic. I think everyone remembers the task where some guy stood on a log for basically 24 hours to win immunity. And then there was this live final, which was a bit of a mess, but at the same time it delivered this really exciting moment when they gave away £1 million. I like the tribes, I like the fact, you know, like it's just so exciting. This format was just so exciting, and I've gone back and watched it since, and it's still great. It's still absolutely great. If you've never seen it, I really recommend you check it out. It's a wonderful series, and it's just such a shame that it lost out to Big Brother here, in the same way Big Brother lost out to Survivor in the US. It's not rocket science, it's just those shows came out first in those territories. It's such a shame for Survivor that it got branded a copycat, because it really couldn't be more different from Big Brother, really. I would like to see the show come back, but it's difficult to imagine it in a world where I'm a Celebrity and Shipwrecked and The Island and all these shows, survival shows, all exist, but all those shows owe such a debt to Survivor. My number 18, an absolute classic, Survivor. Now, in a world where the chase and pointless exist, it's hard to imagine too many game shows really taking them on at their own game. So many have tried, so many have failed, some sort of treading water and doing fine. But one game show that went up against them in that slot, I think, is the best of the lot. Here it is, my number 17. So my number 17 is 5 Minutes to a Fortune. This is a truly great show, and I'd like to go through why I like it so much. For those of you who haven't seen it, basically this game show has a great MacGuffin at the centre of it, which is a giant hourglass full of pound coins. Basically, at the start of the game, a couple comes on and they have £50,000 in the hourglass, and they also are given 5 minutes. They then take on a series of intelligence games and sort of general knowledge rounds, all sort of wonderfully formatted, and basically they get a set amount of time in each game that they choose. And as long as they complete the game in that time, they're fine, they keep all their money intact. But the moment they run out of time, the hourglass turns and their money starts draining away. It's such a wonderful visual that just watching your cash literally go down the drain. Anyone can understand that, and I genuinely feel like this game show only struggled to make an impact because it was up against the chase and pointless. If this is in another slot or on another channel, I think this is a game show that may well still be on air. I think its fate was very cruel. What do I like about this show? I think Davina's very good on this show. I think she's just as good on this as she was on £1 Million Drop, and the fact that she sort of really cares for the contestants really comes across. The games are great. They felt very fresh. They weren't that dissimilar to other sort of like intelligent shows we've seen, like sort of reacting to colours and like, you know, quotes and things like that. But they're all done to sort of reflect this, you know, social media age, or sort of like with sort of very graphically distinct. Really like that game. If there's one weakness of the format, it's maybe the top 10 at the end of the game, and sometimes there would just be a lot of dead air if someone was just struggling too much. But at the same time, I think this show dealt with that dead air better than most, because just you're literally just watching thousands and thousands of pounds drain away, and you're literally going, oh my god, please get this. I think it manages better than The Vault and also 1,000 Heartbeats, which are both formats that have a few similarities to this show. It's a wonderful show. I like the way it looks. I love that sort of like sort of red velvety type set going on, and the hourglass looks amazing. It was obvious so much hard work went into the show. I really liked it. When it was this show and Pointless and The Chase, I would watch this show. That's why I like it so much. In the face of that sort of competition, it says a lot that I was choosing to watch this show over the others. I think it's a shame it had such an early demise, but I have such massive respect for it. My number, what was it? My number 17. 5 Minutes to a Fortune. So my number 16 is a guilty pleasure for many, and it's certainly a guilty pleasure for me. And this is my moment where I'm going to finally admit to the world that I really like this show. Here it is, an absolute classic at number 16.
£250,000. 22 identical sealed boxes. No questions, except one. Deal or no deal?
So my number 16 is Deal or No Deal. Now, over the years, I've had so many conversations with friends, with people who hate this show and tell me how much they hate this show. And I've had to sit there and just go, and just know to myself that I absolutely love this show. And I couldn't say it because it would just make the conversation awkward. So sorry guys, I'm going to say it now. I love Deal or No Deal. I think it's one of the greatest game shows ever made, and I'm going to tell you why. You guys don't need to know how this works. 22 boxes, but just one question, deal or no deal. I find it funny that some people still don't understand how this game show works to this day. It really couldn't be simpler. How much is your box worth? It's so simple. I remember hearing about this show like way before it was launched, and that it was going to be suitcases like the US version, and that obviously, but it was like, it felt like it was like 2 years before it finally came to screen. But man, when this finally came, it was just like, what is this show? It's just like so different from everything that's on TV. And I think that's the fact it was so different, I think is why people love to hate it. Noel was a big part of why this show works so well. He's so good at playing up the drama, of playing up the spectacle, like hitting all the format beats, like making lame games seem important, making massive games feel massive. Noel is just the perfect host for this show, and like the sort of lore and all the language and like the pilgrims and like the Power Five, and you know, like the blues, and you know, we want a blue, and all that sort of language is so important to the show. And it sort of knew that these people were just tuning in day after day after day to watch this show, and the show knew to appeal to those people and sort of go, look, this is sort of, you know about this because you've been watching the show. But there's something like quite like tantalising about that language, about like, oh, pilgrims and Power 5, what are they talking about? I sort of want to know more, and I think that sort of, you know, pulled more people in. And there was a point when this was doing like 5 million and the Paul O'Grady show was on, and that was massive as well. And, you know, this was a time when Channel 4 absolutely dominated the landscape of daytime. They don't anymore, I can tell you that. But, you know, and this show was a massive, massive part of that, because it was really addictive, and everyone was like, what would I do if I was sat in the seat? And everyone used to go, oh, I just bloody take the first offer, and all this. It just started a national conversation about what would you do if you were offered an appointment in the crazy chair on Deal or No Deal. My favourite thing about this format is the cleverness of choosing a contestant from the 22 and have them live together. This is so clever, and I think there's a deeper reason why this is clever. So all the contestants have picked a box, and that could be 1p all the way to up to £250,000, and everybody is genuinely in it for the main contestant, because they open the boxes for the contestant. Now, if they open the £250,000, not only are they devastated for the contestant, because they would be, they're also devastated because they weren't chosen to play. It makes sense for them to be devastated. It's not like they're not acting, it's real. It's like they had the box. They don't want to have the box then, they want to have the box when it's their turn to play. Like, they want to have the 1p because they want to have got rid of it, gone, ha, I see, yeah, I only had 1p in my box, great, and I've helped my friend out. That is such a fundamentally important part of this format, and it's something that it has over the UK version, the US version of the show. So clever. I liked the way like the format did like theme weeks. I think that really worked for it, even if they were a bit throwaway, but it's just like, oh, it's Glastonbury week, oh, it's Christmas week. Just something just to make it feel more exciting. So many game shows after this tried to do the whole Deal or No Deal thing, and we got a lot of terrible game shows as a result of that, because none of them really recognised the genius that is Deal or No Deal, and that's why it's on my list so high at my number 16.
Con los terroristas.
Harlem Shake.
So here it comes. Here is my number 15. Now, just to let you know, from 14 upwards are shows I basically consider pretty much perfect. So this show at number 15 has done fantastically well to be here, but I can't put it any higher because it does have a flaw. You'll see what I mean. But it is a wonderful show hosted by a wonderful host that you all know I like. Here it is, number 15.
Please welcome your host on Wipeout, Paul Daniels.
So my number 15 is Wipeout. Now the original version of this show with Paul Daniels is the reason this is on my list. I think I'm going to reveal at this point that I think Paul Daniels is my favourite game show host of multiple shows. He's just so brilliant on every single show he's ever hosted. All credit to him, and I think this is his best game show gig on Wipeout. I think he's best on this one, but it helps that the format is so great. So how does this game show work? Well, basically there's 3 contestants, and they are going to pick answers from a grid of 16. On the grid, 11 of the answers are correct and 5 are wrong. Each time they picked a correct answer, they would get an increasing value of money. So if they keep getting answers correct, they can bank loads and loads of money. But at any point, they can pass it on to the next contestant. That contestant must answer at least one, which could really stitch them up sometimes. Why would it stitch them up? Well, basically 5 of the answers on the board were wipeouts. Wrong answers, but if you got a wipeout, it wiped out all your money, and that could dramatically alter the game if you had banked loads of money and now suddenly you have none. This show had such a great question style. I think the hosting was great. It brought real humour to proceedings. It sort of knew it was a funny moment when someone got wiped out. I love all the sound effects. I love the way the wipeouts look when they sort of fly onto the screen. Love that. I love the set. It's kind of this spacey kind of set. There's no real reason it looks like that, but I really like it. Great endgame. Everyone talks about this endgame all the time, but basically it's the sort of same game where there's 6 right answers, 6 wrong answers, but it's kind of, they have to race against the clock, trying out different combinations until they've worked out the right one. It's just such a wonderful show. It's so fantastically hosted. The questions are genuinely addictive. You sort of, you do want to see out a whole grid. And you get to see quite a few different questions and sort of some funny answers. There's some good moments where there's like mystery prizes pop up, and they were sometimes booby prizes. The reason this show has to be my number 15 and not any higher is because I have to factor in the daytime version. I have to factor in the Bob Monkhouse version. It really wasn't as good. The main problem with it is Bob Monkhouse would just so easily give away when a contestant had answered a wrong answer by sort of going into his, if this is right then you will have banged £50, but if you're wrong it'll pass, play will pass to the next contestant. And then the moment he said that, it was so obvious that they got it wrong, and that completely loses the jeopardy of the show. It also looked a bit cheap, it looked a bit naff. They went with this like sort of weird, like sort of pastel-y, purpley, like holiday theme, and that version of the show I really don't like. And it's a shame that that version exists, because I feel like it was a big part of Wipeout's history. I mean, I think it was on TV longer than the original version, so I have to factor that in. But I have to say I absolutely adore this show. I know a lot of other people do too. Bring back Wipeout, everyone. My number 15 is Wipeout. And my number 14 is a show that when I started making this list, I started writing it on, and then I started moving it up higher and then higher and then higher, because I just realised I just love this show so much. Here it is, my number 14. Oh, Jesus Christ, it's going to be so hard to keep these chats short now. I love this show so much. I love the shows coming up even more. This is Turnabout, guys. I love this show so much. Oh my God. Let's talk about what I love about this show. I'm not going to go into the format too much. Basically, there's a lot more going on in the show than this description will say, but basically it's all about 3-letter parts of words. So like, for instance, they may use the word cat, and then all the words have got cat in it somewhere, and they're trying to guess that, and they play around with this grid. But then they turn about it later in the show, and then they're playing with the word, they're playing TAC and tack. That's basically how it works. But let's just talk about how fantastic the show is. I'm going to start with the theme song, because the theme song was so catchy and so like turnabout, bow, 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 turnabout. I mean, it's really grabbed your attention straight away. Because there's a lot of other elements of the show look quite boring. There's a lot of like, bizarre things in the show. Why is there a pond in the middle of the studio? No reason for that, but quite like the fact that it's got a pond in the middle of the studio. Rob Curling's a great host. He's very sort of serious, sort of on this, yeah, he really drives the action and like keeps it like rapid and like really exciting. There's this amazing grid, the turnabout grid. I love a grid, as people know, but basically you could change the balls to earn points. If you got 3 in a row, you got 5 points. If you got 4 in a row, you got 10 points. But it was obviously possible to turn a ball and get multiple answers. Multiple lines at once. So you could get multiple points, and that's basically how the scoring worked for the most of the show. That grid is very satisfying. And earlier episodes, they had it so the colours could only change from red to green to blue. So if you changed a green one, it had to become a blue one. but then in later series they just did away with that and you could just change any ball to any colour, which I think was better. This show has one of my favourite rounds in any show ever, which is the Star Game.
Select.
Yes. Stringed instrument.
Cello.
Yes. Small American feline.
Ocelot.
Yes. 16th century Italian goldsmith.
Cellini.
And yes. Fail to care for.
Neglect.
Yes. Phones from British.
Telecom.
Yes. Cross out.
Cancel.
Yes. Package.
Parcel.
Yes. Scottish Football Club.
Celtic.
Yes. Speech peculiar to a region.
Dialect.
Love the Star Game so much. I love the sound effects in this. It really, like, every time they clear one, the sound effects sort of get sort of louder and louder and louder. It's like fantastic, and there's like this like great sort of dramatic like ticking time beat in the background. Love that about this show. Really like the series structure. Like the fact that players would come back and like it, you know, just is such a pacey, rapid, fun show to watch. Everything is quite serious, but it's just so fun. Another great word game show. So many good ones. God, I could talk about this show a lot. I'm not going to talk about it much more, but please let it be known that I absolutely love Turnabout, my number 14. So I've seen a lot of comments on my videos, and it's been great. Thank you so much for all those comments, guys. It really helps like motivate me to sort of edit these videos and stuff. If you're watching this, then you're a dedicated viewer, because lots of people gave up after video 1, obviously. So thank you for that, guys. But here's a show that I don't think I've seen anyone mention yet, but I pretty much love everything about this game show, and I'm going to try and explain why, because it's not an obvious contender, but here it is. A Challenge TV exclusive at my number 13.
It's all about making the right choice at the right time. Would you have the nerve to take it or leave it?
So my number 13 is Take It or Leave It. Now this was a game show at one point I was just completely addicted to, and I'm pretty sure I've seen every episode of this show at some point or another. I just absolutely love this show. Why do I like it so much? Like sometimes it's like the hosting really helps, or like the theme song really helps, or like the sound effects really help. This show is purely the format. I just love the format so much. So how this game show works is there are 2 couples. At the start there's one couple. They have to choose from 2 couples by deciding whether they're going to take it or leave it. And basically taking it or leaving it is the whole concept of the show. So how does it work? Well, there's 10 steps to the end game. To play the end game, you have to get the last question right, or hope the other couple get the last question wrong. But all the way through, they're banking money. The game show is so simple, guys. A question is offered up, and they're given an answer, and they're deciding whether they want to take that answer or leave it for another one they haven't seen. That's really all there is to the questions. But if they get it right, they get to bank money, and they choose from safes which have got random amounts of money in, and basically they open one safe and they can decide whether to take that money or leave it for another. Really love that main game. There's something really interesting to me about those questions. I like the fact all the questions have a picture. I think that really helps and actually makes those questions feel more important. I think they're pitched just right. I really like how they're written. It's sort of like, if you don't know the answer, sometimes an answer just doesn't feel right, and I think they've pitched those questions perfectly. I like the two couple dynamic. I know it probably feels a bit cheap if one team does all the questions and then they lose on the last one and then the other team gets in, but it feels dramatic, so I'm not so bothered about that. The end game is great in this show. Basically they then in the end game they answer 5 take it or leave it questions, and there's 6 safes. Each question they get right, they get to remove a safe, because the money they've accrued up until this point is only in one of them. However, the clever bit of that is that they are offered the 5 questions up once they've answered them all. So they lock in all their answers, and then the questions go away, they're randomly given, and they return. But they return in an order where they're showing questions that they got correct first and answers they got wrong at the end. So if they got 3 right and 2 wrong, the 3 correct ones will be jumbled up first, and the 2 wrong ones will be jumbled up second, and then they're shown them in that order. So if you've got 3 right, the first 3 you answer will be right, but then the 4th one will be wrong. Do you know when to stop? Because you can stop the game and just pick a safe. So if you think you've only got 3 right and you don't fancy the 4th one, you think you may have got it wrong, you can just stop the game, pick a safe, and you might get lucky. But obviously a lot of people try to get 5 right. I like the way this game show looks. I think it's one of the best game shows for sustaining an hour I've ever seen. I could watch this for an hour and never get bored. It's fantastic. I think Richard Arnold does a good job as host. Obviously it's quite a big budget for a challenge TV show, but this was definitely their best game show by a mile. It did quite a few series. I absolutely have so much time for Take It or Leave It. I hope more of you will sort of appreciate that I've put this on my list. I think it's great. I really want to hold it up and salute its greatness. My number 13 is Take It or Leave It. So my number 12 is a game show I feel like I've heard referred to more than any other. It's a game show people in the industry really love, and I think as the years have gone by it's become more and more and more considered a classic. Here it is, my number 12.
His friends call him Ant.
He's widely known as Deck.
And this is Friends Like These!
So my number 12 is Friends Like These. Absolute game show classic. My God, I don't think I've really met anyone in the industry who doesn't respect this show. Certainly a lot of shows have tried to be Friends Like These over the years, but there is only one Friends Like These. Friends Like These. The show that's called Friends Like These. Why do I like this show so much? Well, this show sees a group of 5 male friends and a group of 5 female friends. Maybe they changed it up later in the series, I can't quite remember. But basically it was normally boys versus girls. And it's got that whole sort of lad versus ladette thing that was going on at the time. It's like a perfectly pitched game show of why it has to be on TV at that point. Perfectly pitched. And basically they take each other on in a series of sort of random games. The games aren't particularly themed. It's just like, it's like choosing which of your friends is good at certain things. Like who's cool under pressure, who's got like a, you know, who's you know, got a good sense of balance and like all that sort of stuff. The friends will choose someone to play. It's a girl versus a boy. And then it's just a simple fact of whoever gets the point, you know, whoever wins gets the point. That's how it works. But there's so much more to it than that. I love how the contestants get so behind their player. That's such a big part of the excitement of this show. And like they're really pulling for their friend because they really want that like sort of football-esque, come on, we've scored a goal kind of celebration. Love that. The games are pretty good. Some were better than others. I think actually the games, you know, like when they pull out an arcade machine or do a memory test, maybe that wasn't quite as compelling to me as some of the others. That's probably why it is slightly lower down my list here. But everything else was so great. Obviously Ant and Dec did a really good job hosting this when it first came out. Ian Wright took over later. I mean, he was never going to be as good as Ant and Dec, but they sort of changed up the games when Ian Wright came in, and I think that helped soften the blow. The other great thing about this show is the end game. The end game's really good. In the end game, they play for a holiday, but they have to answer questions about each other, and if they've got the greatest friendship ever, they should know all the answers, but of course sometimes they get them wrong. But there's this great cruel mechanic in that if they get the question wrong, they cost someone their holiday, and you know they're devastated that they're not going to you know Hong Kong or wherever if they've chosen for their holiday. But then there was this great twist where they would then say that there's still a chance, guys, that you can all go on holiday, but you guys have to sacrifice your tickets and answer one more question. It was really great when that was a genuine twist in the show. Obviously it wasn't as good later when they knew it, but it still worked well. So that end game is like a genuine great piece of TV drama. But the best thing about this show is the end game that decides who plays the actual end game, the sort of penalty shootout. This is kind of brilliant. So they've played 4 rounds up until this point, which leaves 1 player on each team who hasn't played. They then have to come out and play basically a penalty shootout, but using a different mechanic, whether it be rolling a ball or throwing a hoop over a stick. It's normally a game that's very, very simple, but the amazing thing about this is there's 5 points on offer for each team. So basically, quite often you would get meltdowns, and the reason you get meltdowns is, unlike a normal penalty shootout, they've been very clever. Now, the obvious format thing would be to have all the players play again, like they each take a turn. That's how a penalty shootout works, and this is what this is clearly based on. But imagine a football penalty shootout where the same player has to take all 5 penalties, and imagine their confidence just ebb away as they miss their first penalty, and then their second penalty, and their friends like really going, come on, you can score this third penalty. That's what Friends Like These captures so well, because it's just that frustration and the fact that they feel like it's more important than them just losing a game show. They feel like they've let down their friends. They feel like they've let down everyone they love, and it's that cruelty that is threaded through the show that makes it work so well, and makes it matter, and makes it great. And that's why Friends Like These is my number 12. So here it is, my number 11, the best of the rest. Now I have to tell you at this point that I'm still tweaking my list. I'm still not set on that top 10. I keep moving them around. But when I made my list, my first time I made the list, there were 11 shows I considered to be possible number 1s, and this is one of them at number 11. This show is basically as good as it can be. I'm so disappointed I have to put it as my number 11, but I believe the other 10 shows I would want to watch more than this one. I think this is going to be a bit of a surprise, but here is my number 11.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Cilla Black!
So my number 11 is the moment of truth. This is a show I just can't wait to talk about because I believe this game show is perfect. I don't think this game show could be any better than what it is. Let me explain how it works, because it's not the most famous game show in the world. Cilla Black hosts a show where families come on, and basically Cilla will turn up at their house and will give one of the family members a task at random, and it's normally a task that is very, very difficult to do and will need a lot of practice. But if they can do the task in the studio in a week's time, or however long it was, then they will win stuff from Cilla's Dream Directory, and each member of the family gets to choose an amazing prize for them to win. It could be a PC or a holiday or a car, and the kids would choose something like they want like a massive doll's house, or like all the video game systems they like, or whatever. They then come to studio and then have to face that challenge in the studio, and it's very, very dramatic. Why do I love the moment of truth so much? I've got to tell you first and foremost that I think from a musical standpoint, I think this is my favourite game show soundtrack of all time. I just love the theme song. I mean, please check out this moment when they have to walk.
Because it's time to face your moment of truth. Come on, Ray.
This is your moment of truth. I mean, I just like, I don't understand how that moment can't get you pumped up. It gives me chills just watching it every time anyone takes that walk. It's just some lit up stars on the floor, but it's just like, oh my goodness me, it's just so dramatic, and it's just like you're really pulling for them. The tasks are really well pitched. I really like the VTs at home where like the families are all trying to help their family member like succeed in the task. I just find them so sort of like warm and loving. I love that about the show. Again, a bit like Friends Like These, there's a real cruelty in the show, because if you fail in the task, then you're going to let your kids down. And I think like nowadays, I think this show wouldn't be allowed to do that in the same way and just like take the prizes away. I think they did give them some like consolation prizes, but it definitely felt like they lost their dream prize, these kids. But actually, I think that really helps the drama of this, that those kids are not going to get those prizes if this fails. The tasks are so wonderful. I think this task in particular is possibly one of the greatest TV moments I've ever seen.
Now Paul must successfully complete a knight's tour on this board within 3 minutes. This means that using the conventional L-shaped knight's move, Paul must move his knight around the board and visit every single square once, and once only. If at any point Paul lands on a square for a second time, then I'm afraid he instantly loses. And to make it clear to everyone, we will take it that Paul is happy with the square he has landed on the moment he lets go of the knight. But you understood that already, didn't you? All right, Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, please wish them all the luck in the world, because this is the Broad family's moment of truth. Okay, Paul, give us a thumbs up when you're ready. Great. Well, your time starts now.
Black, 2 white, 3 black, 4 white, 5 black, 6 white, 7 black, 8 white, 9 black, 10 white, 5 black, 6 white, 7 black, 8 white, 9 black, 30 white, 55 black, 56 white, 57 black, 58 white, 59 black, 60, 61, 62, 63, 65.
Once I heard that little giggle at the end there, I thought, he's done it. Never mind about the knight. You could be knight. He's our knight in shining armour for the night, isn't he, ladies and gentlemen?
Cilla Black is so wonderful on this show. She's so great with the contestants, but like just playing up the moments of it. I just like, just have such warm fuzzy feelings thinking about this show. And I honestly don't think this type of show has been done better than this. I think as the sort of shoulder peak, light entertainment game show goes, this one is the best. It's the best of the lot. I think it's perfect, and it pains me that I can't put it higher, but that's just literally down to my taste. I think this show could be my number one. It could be my number one, and it's deserving of that because I think it's that perfect. And if you take anything from this, please consider this game show an absolute classic, because it absolutely deserves to be. That is my number 11, the moment of truth. Guys, I need help. I think Luna's conspiring. She just came into the room and moved the camera with her tail. Suspicious. There she is, in the wild. What an absolute dickhead. I'm onto you. Yeah, I'm onto you. Don't pretend you like me. So the wait is nearly over. 90 game shows down. Only my top 10 to go. What will be considered my favourite UK game show of all time? Find out in my next video. I can't wait to talk about it. But remember, it's only a list. Isn't it? Luna, what's going to be number one? What do you think it's going to be? What's going to be number one? Who's going to be number one? Yeah.